This next topic can sound pretty complicated, but I want you to hang in here because this is really an important issue. Yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court denied an emergency request from Oklahoma for an injunction to reinstate over $4 million in Title X funds, while that whole case now is going to start making its way through the lower courts. Again, this case may seem a little dry, but the implications here are extremely serious, and we want to make sure that you're up to speed on it all. And joining me now to break all this down is Steve Aden, Americans United for Life's Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel. Steve, welcome to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Thank you, Congressman. It's great to be with you.
Okay, so first of all, maybe a little historical perspective. How did this dispute between Oklahoma and the Biden administration, the HHS in particular, how did all this get started?
Well, Congressman, as you know, the federal government funds family planning programs in the states, has since about 1970. Oklahoma takes a good-sized chunk of that for their family planning programs, principally for poor folks. And the Biden administration, as part of their nonstop attempt to reimpose a federal right to abortion that the Supreme Court said no longer existed in the Dobbs case when it overturned Roe versus Wade, it told the states, if you want federal family planning money under Title X, you're going to have to agree to refer women in Title X programs for abortions. And a lot of states protect life from conception, like Oklahoma, like Tennessee, which had 7 million yanked by the Biden administration. And they said, no, thanks, we're not going to refer for abortion. It's illegal in our state. Well, HHS didn't like that. They yanked the 4 million from Oklahoma for that, the 7 million from Tennessee, and they're going around the country trying to force states to kowtow to the Biden administration's Medicaid officials and refer women for abortion, when in fact it's illegal in a lot of states.
Yeah, so that poses a problem. This looks to me, and please, Steve, tell me if I'm wrong, but I look at this case and it appears to me as another example of the federal government being weaponized to force states that are pro-life to forsake their state laws and bow, as you say, and embrace, in fact, the abortion agenda of the federal government, at least of this Democratic Party. Is that a stretch, or is that in actuality what's happening here?
Well, it's not a stretch at all, Congressman, because if the federal government were doing its job under the Constitution, it would enforce and administer a whole host of pro-life laws that Congress has passed over the years, like the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits funding of tax dollars for elective abortions and other things. Instead, they've twisted things around and they've said, well, we're going to force Department of Defense healthcare facilities to provide abortions. We're going to provide for abortions in many other ways. We're going to unleash the power of HHS and the Attorney General to try to force pro-life states to provide for and fund elective abortion. So this is just one example of that, and they're doing it in a number of different ways. This attempted forced referral for abortion is illegal for a couple of reasons. Under federal law as it stands, the Weldon Amendment says that the federal government cannot force states or state health care providers to refer for abortion. It's a conscience provision, but like a lot of provisions, the Biden administration has ignored that one and gone on anyway. But we hope the Supreme Court will clear this up sooner or later.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, because here's another big question that comes to me. A lot of people, a lot of folks these days, and a lot of confusion with this, but many are saying that abortion rights, that life now is a state issue. But what we're seeing in this is a federal government still, right now, today, forcing states that have pro-life laws to forsake those laws. So this would say to me that neither now nor at some point in the future, at the end of the day, is the battle for life ultimately and solely a state issue. There is a role of the federal government.
Oh, absolutely. There are a host of federal laws that protect life. and the administration has to commit to enforcing them instead of trying to circumvent them. I'll give you another example. The Supreme Court just heard a case involving the Biden administration's attempt to force all hospital emergency rooms to do abortions. There's a federal law, EMTALA, which said you can't turn women away or patients away if they're in emergency circumstances from an emergency room. It's a good law. And they, again, have twisted that to say, well, part of healthcare is abortions. So if a woman needs an abortion, she comes to the emergency room, you got to give her one. Well, that's not what the law was meant to do. And yet they have twisted it in a really diabolical way and tried to force hospitals to do that. That's just one of many things they're doing like that.
So this remains a battle that has to be fought diligently on all fronts, the state level as well as the federal level, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Americans United for Life is fighting the fight in Congress and all 50 states. We're looking forward to the day when there's a constitutional amendment protecting all life, even if that's a generational goal. It took 50 years almost to overturn Roe versus Wade. And if that's how long it takes to enshrine protections for all human life in America, we will do that.
Steve Aden, Americans United for Life, thank you so much for breaking this down for us. It's an extremely important case. Thank you for joining us on Washington Watch.
Thank you, sir.